What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be putting the freshly built motor into the Civic and testing it out and see how it does. I did make some progress on this car since the start of the video. Actually, I finished this motor completely. So I set the timing on it. As you can see, we have the timing belt on there right now. And then I set the valve lash. The valve train was put on incorrectly. There's some springs that are supposed to go against the spark plug tubes that I had on there wrong. So I fixed that, set the valve lash, bolted the valve cover on, and now it's good to go. And then over here, as you can see, I have the turbo kit out. And that's about it. So I disconnected the shift linkages under the car and took the turbo kit out. And that's where we are right now. I also drained the coolant and took the bumper off. But now we're going to go ahead and continue pulling out this motor, which is going to be pretty much just on time lapse because I've done this so many times and you guys have seen it. So we're going to go ahead and get going. Alright, the engine is out now, and we're going to take this engine and get this off right here, and then we're going to pick it up with the cherry picker so we can get the transmission off. My phone filled up, so I had to take some of the videos off, and while I did that, I got the motor completely broken down. It's over there on the cart, and now we have the transmission right here and the new motor right there. I'm gonna go ahead and take apart this transmission and put the new differential in it. Alright guys, so now that we got the transmission apart, we're going to be working on our differentials. This is the differential that I pulled out. This is the stock one. This is the one that's going in. This is a helical limited slip differential from MFactory. No sponsor here. This thing was super expensive, like $700 or $800. I can't remember exactly. I'll put a link to that in the description. But right now what we have to do here, we need to remove this bearing, which I have the tool to do, and then we have to put this speedo gear and this final drive on here, and then put the new bearings on this thing as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so here's the bearing puller I have. It was a bit too small, so I had to go get some threaded rod to go through. As you can see, it's right on the edges of this thing. And then I put a nut on it right here with a 25 mil socket holding pressure down, and I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this down. It should pull the bearing off of the differential. So once you get the bearing off, then this just pulls right off. And then all we have to do now is just unbolt all of these bolts and this gear will come off as well. So the problem is that bolts stripping out inside of the differential. The bolt itself is still good, but the differential is what's getting messed up by this. So we're going to try to get all the bolts out and then maybe run a die on them so that I can reuse them, because I don't believe the LSD came with new ones. So I'll double check once we get them all out, but we got to get this gear off regardless. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that. I'm not going to record it. So we have the differential all together now. The problem with it was that the threads for the final drive gear are left-handed threads, so we stripped all of the bolts. Luckily my cousin had a transmission and I was able to pick it up from him and get the bolts out of that differential. So we have everything all assembled now, and we're just going to go ahead and put the transmission back together. Okay, so we fought with this transmission for a while. We ended up having to use the final drive bolts from a different transmission, and then messed up one of the bearings in there, so we had to take the bearing from the other transmission and this outer case from the other transmission because my bolts were stripped for the engine mount. So that transmission is all together now. I started putting this engine together. We have the alternator on it, the timing cover, and then this front mount right here. That's it. And then I just put in this new stud here and this intake manifold gasket. So now we're going to go ahead and throw the intake manifold on and then put the wiring harness back on. I also wanted to mention this right here. My dad was working on this. We deleted the PCV valve, so that way we don't have a clogged PCV valve anymore. And there's a piece of copper tubing that goes in here that's sealed, and this is going to go to another hose that runs over to my catch can. Okay, so here's the engine right now, all bolted together. Everything's on here, everything's hooked up. We got the oil line for the turbo. Over here I was missing this inner timing cover. I don't know what happened to it. I have one on the other motor. I'm probably going to pull it off, but for now we just bolted it on without that inner timing cover. This one's still on, so that's good. And everything's pretty much ready to go. So tomorrow we are going to take this off the engine stand and put it on there. Then I'm going to bolt the clutch on and the transmission, and then go ahead and start putting it back into the car. All right, we have two distributors here. This is an OBD2 shell with OBD1 internals from this distributor originally. This is an OBD1 shell with OBD2 internals, so we need to take the internals with these distributors and swap them back to the original distributors that they came from, so that my wiring harness will work with my distributor. Alright guys, I got the distributors all done here. Now we're going to go ahead and get the spark plugs swapped over between the two motors. I am going to get new spark plugs for this motor that I just built, but I forgot to do that. So for now, in case we end up starting it tonight, I'm going to swap the spark plugs between the two motors. Okay, so we have the engine on the hoist now and we have the flywheel torqued. So the next thing that we're gonna do is bolt the clutch on and then put the transmission on. Alright, so we got the transmission on here, and I'm just going ahead and buckling up some of this stuff so that we can go ahead and pop this back in the car. Finally, at the very exciting point that this can go back in there. So I'm gonna throw this stuff up here out of the way, and we're gonna wheel this guy underneath the car. All right, here we go.
Look at people and I wonder all day, who are you and you are not the one in your way. And then I think about myself and I stayed. I'm a pretty boss, look almost your brain waves. I'm a freak in the sheets, but I got class. I'ma grab an ass if you want it. Best you ever had, give it to you fast. Ooh.
Alright, so the engine is completely bolted in now with all the motor mounts. Now we just got to go ahead and plug everything in. Alright guys, it is the next day now. I'm going to go ahead and start buttoning up all of this stuff. Everything just has to be plugged in and hooked up. Power steering pump and the AC have to be put back. And then we should be able to get this thing started.
Now listen for the doubt, then call it. Make you out for what you say to me. Look at every single date. If you got what I need, then oh, I'll take you on like a big deal. Legs you can unseal, key in ignition. Just keep me full like I had a meal once in a while. Feel alright. I know you like it, can't fight it. I'ma let you ride the wave. I'm New York and you're LA. Come together, feel the shock waves.
Alright, so I'm going to take this opportunity now to go ahead and change out these seals. I have an axle seal for this side and the other side, and then I also have this shifter seal right here. So I'm going to go ahead and swap those out. Okay, so we have the new seals in now. And one over here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and hook the shifters up. Now, one issue that I had with my shifters is I had left and right play. There's a few things that can cause play in your shifter. I do have forward and back play as well. So if you have left and right play, the first thing you're gonna wanna check is back here. In here, your shifter, there's a bearing in here. If that bearing goes bad, you'll get left and right play. My bearing is actually fine. This is a newer shifter. So if that bearing goes bad, you're just gonna wanna replace that shifter. If you still have left and right play after that, most likely your culprit is this spring pin right here that holds the shifter up front. That will give you left and right play if there's play in this. So go ahead and replace that. That should get rid of your play. If you have forward and back play, then you're gonna wanna get yourself something like this, which is a shifter bushing kit for this car. It comes with the shift stabilizer right here, bushing, which is right there, and then it comes with this longer bushing, which goes up here. And that should be able to get rid of all of any play that you might have in your shifter. All right, the shifter stuff's hooked up and both axles are in. We're gonna go ahead and bolt the turbo kit in now. Well guys, it's a few days later now, about a week later from the last video, and while I did try to get this done and ready for grid life, I wasn't able to get everything working. So it is 100% together now. The engine runs great. It started up first try really easily. At the end of the last video, I don't think you got to see, but we added all the fluids in, and then I cranked the engine with the spark plugs out and the fuel pump fuse out as well, and got oil flowing through there, and then plugged that stuff back in, and then started the engine, fired right up, ran great. I let it get to running temperature, and then I shut it off. We used 30 weight break-in oil, and I plan on running that for a little bit. The problem is I messed up something with the transmission, so there's no reverse. All the other gears work except for reverse, and then something's going on with the clutch. I have no pressure in the clutch pedal. Not sure what's going on with that. There's fluid in there. We tried bleeding it. I checked for leaks. It doesn't really seem like it's leaking anywhere, so I'm really confused. I mean, it worked when we took the other engine out, and then we put all this stuff in, and now it doesn't work. I didn't disconnect any of the lines or anything, so I'm really confused about it. So now I think I'm just going to replace all of the hydraulic stuff and see if we can get clutch pedal. I did drive it, like pumping up the clutch pedal, you can get enough pressure to shift it into another gear, and then it grabs right at the floor. But I did drive it around the neighborhood, and it seems to be doing fine. I do have all the gears except for reverse. So I'm thinking that I put something back together wrong with the reverse gear. So I got to pull the transmission back out, take it apart, and see what I can figure out with that. But for now, we're just going to call this at this point and pick back up on this another day. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure that you like the video and comment if you feel like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help a lot. Peace out.